meditation. She had a degree in human ecology and postgraduate in holistic health. She currently administers the Brahma Kumaris Meditation Center in Eugene, Oregon, conducts trainings to enable others to become meditation teachers, and is a facilitator of a variety of subjects related to spirituality and personal development. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome Sister Kiran. Welcome, Sister Kiran, to Toronto.
Thank you very much, Veronica. Very nice to be with you all on this Tuesday in October. You know, giving a talk on silence seems like a contradiction in terms, because if you're truly seeking silence, it doesn't seem like you'd be doing much talking. Anyway, reflecting on what I'd like to say on this subject, I discovered it's not so much about seeking silence as it is about finding silence. So I'd like to start with a few minutes of just guided exploration of silence. So if you would all like to just sit comfortably, maybe if possible, keep your eyes gently open so that you can begin to cultivate detachment from your senses. And this will help you later on access inner peace under any circumstances. So sit comfortably, keep your eyes gently open, and now become aware. Become aware of your surroundings, of the feeling of the body sitting on the chair. Become aware of any sounds in your environment. And then notice that which is aware of the sounds and the things that you can see with your eyes, that which is aware is itself silent. Awareness is silent. And I am the silent being of awareness. I am the being who is aware, and I have control over my awareness. And the nature of my awareness is that it's silent. And that silent awareness is naturally peaceful. You may be noticing that your thoughts are perhaps slowing down, and you're just focusing in this present moment, being here now. And just think these thoughts that I am this silent being of awareness. And feel that connection to yourself as that being of awareness. And now again, become aware of the feeling of your body on the chair and the other people in your Zoom screen and the other things in your environment. So were you able to do that? Maybe you can all nod or wave or something if you were able to go there and experience that you are the being of awareness and that awareness is silent. So what is silence? Google says, Google, right? It says that it's the complete absence of sound. Wikipedia says that it's the absence of ambient audible sound. And some definitions I saw on the internet say that it's the absence of intentional sound. In other words, silence is the absence of anything that's produced by something that you can turn on, like your devices, your radio, your iPod, or whatever. And so silence is that. So there's a lot of different ideas of what silence is. Ramana Maharishi defines 4 kinds of silence. The silence of speech, the silence of the eye, the silence of the ear, nothing audible, and the silence of the mind. And he says that the silence of the mind is the only pure silence. And of course, it's the most important one. Now, silence and peace are very closely connected. And sometimes they're used interchangeably. I have a coffee mug that says on it, peace. It does not mean to be in a place where there's no noise, no trouble, or hard work. Peace means to be in the midst of those things and still be calm in your heart. So peace and silence are very closely connected. And so for those of us who practice Raj Yoga meditation, silence isn't as much about the absence of external noise as much as it's about the presence of inner quiet. And I'll say more about that soon. Some people fear silence. Years ago, I had a friend who always left the radio on whenever she left the house because she dreaded, it wasn't for security purposes. Nowadays, sometimes we leave on the radio so that people think that we're home, but she left it on because she dreaded coming back to a silent house. And external silence does quickly make you aware of the internal noise of your thoughts and the many conversations you've got going on in your head. And it also makes you aware of any kinds of negative feelings that you have, like feelings of anxiety or depression or loneliness. And maybe you don't want to deal with those feelings, and so you don't want to have any silence. And also when we're with others, sometimes, and silence occurs, it can be awkward, it can be uncomfortable. So for these reasons, some people don't like silence. But obviously, those of you who are here aren't in that group of people. So why are you here? Is it that you just attend these programs regularly on Tuesdays and you like them as a general rule? Or is it that you really are interested in this particular topic on silence? And if that's the topic pulled you here, what is it about that? Why is it that you're interested in silence? I wish we could be a little more interactive, but it's okay. I will hypothesize. Maybe rather than fearing the noise of your thoughts and the conversations in your head, maybe you're actually ready to do something about them. Maybe you're tired of your monkey mind jumping up and down and you want to get some control over it and bring it into some more quiet. Maybe you have certain feelings of there's something missing in your life. There's an emptiness there. You feel like you need something. Or maybe you're just discontent and you want some inner peace. Or maybe you even find yourself craving silence. You know, sometimes we stay up really late at night until everybody else is asleep in the house, just so we can get some space for ourselves, some silence. Maybe that's where you're at. Or maybe in this pandemic too, when you normally would have gone out into nature to recharge and feel silence and a connection with yourself, maybe that's not been so possible. So that's maybe why you're here. I don't know what the real reason is, but I'm sure you all are looking forward to the benefits that you can achieve through silence. And I'm just going to mention some of those, because when you have the ability to experience silence within, you're also able to experience your inner core of peace and purpose. Silence gets you in touch with yourself. And silence is restful to the mind. When your mind is not jumping around with a billion thoughts, it's like, ah. And William Penn actually said that true silence is rest for the mind. It is to the spirit what sleep is to the body. It's nourishment and refreshment. And so it does recharge you, as our subtitle says, and it refreshes you when you experience it. So as a result, silence is healing for the soul. It's a balm for the soul. And Paramahansa Yogananda said that through the portals of silence, the healing sun of wisdom and peace will shine upon you. But silence is also essential for creativity. So just look around in your environment right now, because everything you see was created by someone, a creator, an inventor who divined how to make your TV or your laptop, your iPod or your lighting fixtures. And they did that they must have spent some time in silence, in the silence of deep and concentrated thought. Silence enables you to know yourself as you truly are, not as you think you are. And there is often a big difference. And silence enables you to know the divine, to know God. If you're from a Christian background, you're probably familiar with the 46th Psalm, which says, "Be still and know that I am God." All spiritual paths advocate the cultivation of inner silence so that you can know the divine. So I want to stop again now and just have another little silence experiment. Again, sit comfortably. And if you can, just keep your eyes open a bit. And again, become aware of yourself and listen. Listen to the silence. Listen for the silence in between your thoughts. Can you hear the silence? Who is hearing the silence? It's you, the being of awareness. You're connecting with yourself, inside yourself. You're not connecting externally, you're going within. You're focusing your attention on your beingness. You're moving from the world of senses, sensory input, to the world beyond the senses. You're moving from the world where I am somebody to, and I have some things, and I exist somewhere in some time. You're moving beyond all of those physical sensory inputs into pure consciousness, where I am pure awareness, where I am, I exist, I experience. And in this state, I can understand that I will always exist, even after the body and senses finish. I, the being of awareness, will continue to exist as a being of awareness. I am the immortal soul, the eternal spirit. I feel this connection with myself. So now you can again become aware of your Zoom screen and all the little boxes on it and the feeling of your body in the chair. Were you able to do that? Were you able to move beyond the senses a little bit? I'd like to share what I call my age of silence, because silence is a language, right? And to learn a language, you first have to learn the letters. You have to first learn your ABCs. So A stands for awareness. Let's just pay some attention to our awareness, because awareness is an amazing phenomenon. So just now, I want you to become aware of your left hand. Okay? You can feel your left hand, maybe it's resting on your lap. Become aware of the palm of your left hand. Excuse me. Become aware of the cells in the palm of your left hand and the blood vessels. You're not looking at your left hand, you're just being aware of it. You know that there's blood vessels, there's cells, there's a whole dynamic of biochemistry going on in the palm of your left hand. You can become aware of it, right? Okay, and now just shift your awareness again to the building in which you are currently sitting. Could be a little house, could be a big building, could be other people in the building. You just shifted your awareness from the narrow focus of your palm to this entire space that you're part of. And you can expand your awareness to be aware of the town or city that you're sitting in. Like all of Toronto and all those souls who live in Toronto going around their business on this Tuesday evening in October. And there's some in hospitals, there's some on the police force, there's some on the street. You can become aware of all of that. You control your awareness, and you always have a choice of where to put your awareness. You are a being of awareness. So that's the B, the being part. A is awareness, B is the being part. One of the reasons we have difficulty finding our inner peace and quiet is that we have so many different identities. And sometimes they're all talking at once in our heads. For example, there's my identity as a mature, responsible adult, or as a young student, or somebody just starting out on my career. There's my inner child identity. There's my cultural identity. Maybe my religious identity, or my political, or my gender identity. And they all my identities have their unique likes and dislikes, assert conflicting sometimes demands on me. And then there's even my personality type identities. For example, I'm a creative, or I'm a neatnik, or I insist on honesty, or I'm always ready to help. These are all different personas that we have at different times. And so our most basic identity, however, is that regardless of all those other roles and identities that I have, I am basically a being of awareness, a being of consciousness. And another word for that is soul in the spiritual terminology. So, can I make that my primary identity? I'm a being of awareness. I'm a being of consciousness. I'm a soul. Can I make that my primary identity? I am the thinking being, and I exist, but I don't have any visible identity. I'm the living energy, this consciousness and awareness. And the only way I can really see myself or visualize myself is as a tiny point, luminous, energetic, of living, intelligent energy. Because a point is the only this, but it doesn't have any dimensions, any measurable dimensions. And so I can conceive of and perceive of myself as this tiny spark of living, intelligent energy. And I exist in this body here in the center of the forehead. And when I, the soul, move on from this body, I, the being of awareness, am going to continue to exist, even though this body will be consigned to the flames or buried. Yeah, so I'm not the body, I'm the being, and I need to make the being my primary identity if I want to easily access my inner state as a being of peace, a being of silence at any time, no matter what is going on. And then see, there is this connection. When that happens, when I'm identified with myself as the being, and I'm aware of myself as the being, I'm connected to my true nature, to my true self. And I'm able to control my awareness, and I can access divine energies. So my mind is not jumping around. I'm grounded in my inner being. And now, if I focus my attention on something, many creative insights and realizations arise. So I'll tell you this little story. There was this old man. He was a farmer and he lived in a rural area. And his wife had died many years ago. And he had this watch that he was very attached to because she had given it to him decades ago, maybe after they just gotten married. And so he was very attached to this watch. And one day when he was out in the barn, cleaning the barn, he lost his watch. And he spent the rest of the day looking and looking and looking for that watch. But it was like trying to find a needle in a haystack. He just could not find it. So finally he was exhausted, and he saw that there was a school down the road and the kids were coming home from school. So he went out and he said, "Kids, look, I've lost my watch. It's in this barn somewhere. If you can find it, I'll give you a nice reward." So of course they were all enthusiastic, and they went into the barn and they started looking and looking and looking for this watch. And finally, after a few hours, it was time. They had to get home, right? And they hadn't found the watch. And they were anyway a bit cranky by that time. So he was getting very despondent that how is he ever going to find this watch? So the kids left. But then after a few minutes, a little boy knocked on his door. He says, "Yes, son, what do you want?" And the little boy said, "Can I have one more chance at finding the watch?" And the old man said, "Okay, sure." So the little boy goes into the barn. And within a few minutes, he comes back with a watch. And the old man is like, "How did you manage to do that? How did you find my watch?" And the little boy said, "Well, I just thought that if I went and I sat quietly and listened, I would hear the watch ticking and I would find it." And I did. So what is the moral of this story? Is that when you go into silence, you can hear the watch ticking. You can hear the solutions to problems will come into your mind. The insights and realizations that you need, the creative sparks of inspiration that you need will arise when you sit in silence. So I thought that was a good example of a story to illustrate that. Many years ago, I also read a book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. I don't know if any of you read that story, but I don't remember anything about that book except one scene where this guy was talking about holding a pair of pliers in his hand. And as he looked at the pair of pliers, he was able to see how someone had fashioned that pair of pliers. Someone had designed it, someone had invented it, someone had figured out, all the shape and form of it so it fit comfortably in your hand. And the whole story of that pair of pliers came into his awareness that day as he was holding that. And that's because his mind was quiet and he was in the present moment. And he just looked at that pair of pliers and he got this whole realization of how it came to exist in the palm of his hand. Similarly, I want to just share a passage with you from the Tao of Physics, written by physicist Fritjof Capra. Maybe you've heard of him. So he says, 5 years ago, I had a beautiful experience which set me on a road that has led to the writing of this book. I was sitting by the ocean one late summer afternoon, watching the waves rolling in, feeling the rhythm of my breathing, when I suddenly became aware of my whole environment as being engaged in a gigantic cosmic dance. Being a physicist, I knew that the sand and the rocks and the water and the air around me were made of vibrating molecules and atoms, and that these consisted of particles which interacted with one another by creating and destroying other particles. I also knew that the Earth's atmosphere was continually bombarded by showers of cosmic rays, particles of high energy undergoing multiple collisions as they penetrated the air. And all of this was familiar to me from my research in high energy physics. But until that moment, I had only experienced it through graphs and diagrams and mathematical theories. As I sat on that beach, my former experiences came to life, and I saw cascades of energy coming down from outer space, in which particles were created and destroyed in rhythmic pulses. I saw the atoms of the elements and those of my body participating in this cosmic dance of energy. I felt its rhythm and I heard its sound. And at that moment, I knew that this was the dance of Shiva, the Lord of dancers, worshipped by the Hindus. And I just cite that paragraph because what state of consciousness was he in to get that whole experience? He was in a state of inner silence. So inner silence allows these kinds of transcendental and also inspirational moments and realizations. And it also allows connection with God, with the divine. Just like the sun, we're all aware of the physical sun that's shining up there in the sky. And its light is transmitting light and warmth, even though we can't perceive it when it's night, like it must be in Toronto right now, dark, or when it's raining, like it is in Oregon right now. But in the same way, God, the spiritual sun, the spiritual source, is always sending the energy of love and peace and wisdom to us. And in silence, we can begin to feel that energy. which refreshes us and recharges us even more. So now I'd like to do another little experiment. So once again, sit comfortably. Keep your eyes open a bit and become aware again of yourself as the being of awareness, the being of consciousness, the soul, the spirit. Sorry about the phone ringing. You can tune that out of your awareness. It will stop in a minute. So become aware now of the energy that you have as a soul, a being of awareness, the energy of consciousness, the energy of life. And just allow yourself to be open to the energy of the divine, God's energy. Just allow yourself to feel this loving, accepting energy coming around you and filling you and embracing you, enveloping you. An unconditional, loving energy that accepts you however you are, whatever you are. Allow yourself to just let in some of this loving energy. Allow it to fill you with a feeling of love and acceptance of yourself. Let yourself appreciate it and feel grateful that you're a being of awareness who can have this experience. And then become aware of the others in our little Zoom rooms who are all allowing ourselves to whatever extent we can to have this kind of experience. We are all kindred souls. And as you come back to the awareness of the room and the chair, take a deep breath. Just appreciate again that you're able to have this gift of awareness. And it's very precious. Our consciousness, our awareness is very precious and it's very powerful. And as we learn to use the language of silence, we can use this power of our consciousness for bringing a lot of benefit, not only to ourselves and our loved ones, but to the world. So I just want to spend a couple more minutes talking about the language of silence. Because once we've learned the ABCs of silence, awareness, being, and connection, we can begin to speak the language of silence. And as Ramana Maharishi pointed out, it conveys not only through speech, but through the eyes and through the mind. We're very familiar with the language of silence when it comes to speech, because we know how to give someone the silent treatment by withholding speech. But our verbal silence can also mean that we're feeling intimidated or fearful. Also, our verbal silence can also signal acceptance and love. And we're also a bit familiar with the language of the eyes, because we know that the eyes can shoot daggers and convey hatred and anger, as well as love and care and compassion. And there's also a subtle language of signals that can be conveyed through the eyes. When two or more souls are on the same wavelength, you, just as a glance, transmits a message, and someone can pick it up and know what you're signaling. So there's an example I have of that, an experience that one year I was in the Brahma Kumari's headquarters in Madhuban, and we were celebrating something, and there was a bunch of people in a room, and we were dancing. And it was getting on to 9 o'clock, and I was sitting kind of on the side. I wasn't actually participating in the dancing. I was just noticing, but it was carrying on quite boisterously. And I just suddenly noticed our two elder senior sisters, we call them daddies, they just sort of caught each other's eye. And they moved to the front of the room, and they sat down, and they just started meditating. And pretty soon, other people in the front of the room sort of caught what they were doing through their eyes, and they stopped dancing and sat down and started meditating. And pretty soon, the whole room was all just sitting in silence and meditating. And the atmosphere changed from this boisterous, joyous thing to silence in the space of 2 or 3 minutes, and not a word was spoken. It was a great example to me of the language of silent signals. Now, when we talk about the language through the mind, one of the things that we have to be aware of is that we project a lot. We make up stories in our minds about what is going on with other people. But when we can cultivate inner silence, then we're able to silence those stories, and we're then able to understand the true feelings of what is going on within someone else. So we can understand the true feelings in the minds of others. And that enables us to accept others as they are, not as we think they are. And then we're able to serve them with our good wishes and pure feelings. So then we can begin to use our mind, our language of silence, in very beneficial ways to help uplift others. And we're also then able to hear God's voice as well. Because God is not only just sending us energy, God is always communicating with us. It's just that we can't hear that Supreme Soul's communications because either we're not listening or we have so much other internal noise going on. But if we can just tune our minds to be silent, then we can pick up those terms of endearment that God is always expressing for us. So I just want to say that in terms of cultivating and practicing this inner silence, start out small. Start out with just a few minutes every day. And some of us are very busy. We have a million things going on. So it's not that we have to spend a long time at it. We can have just minutes where we tune in. Remember that we're the being of awareness. Remember that we are a spiritual being, a soul, and that our natural nature is silence. Come back to that experience, even for a moment. And in this way, we accumulate drops of silence and keep on accumulating drops of silence through the day. And by the end of the day, you have a little pool. And by the end of the week, you have a little pond. And by the end of a few months, you have a lake. And eventually, you can have a whole ocean of silence around you all the time. And you can transmit the vibrations of silence. So I think we're almost to the end of our time. Do I have time for another closing meditation experience? Okay. So let's again go into the awareness of being the being of awareness, the spiritual being. Focus just on the self, listening to the silence, allowing the thoughts to slow down. I can use this silence to contemplate silence itself, the nature of silence. I can use it to contemplate the quality of patience. I can use it to contemplate what love really is. I can use it to clarify my aims. What is it that I really want? What are my deepest values? What are my highest hopes? I can use this inner silence to feel the connection with the divine, with God. I can allow God to be with me in this inner space, sharing this silent company. And that powerful, loving, strong energy of God protects me, guides me, uplifts me, sets me at ease. It only takes just a few minutes, not even. It only takes a refocusing of my awareness, an experience of being this, an experience of connection. So now let's return to the awareness of our Zoom rooms and each other and come back into external sound. And I don't know if anyone has any questions or if there's time for that, but I'm happy to answer them if there are. I guess you could put them in the chat if anyone has any questions.
Good evening, Sister Kiran. I think we don't have any questions. You were very clear. I think all of us understood everything. So thank you so much for that insightful sharing. It was great. And I think what stuck with me the most was the last part that you said, that how we make up stories in our mind about what other people would be thinking. We do that guesswork, right? And when we sit in silence, we actually find out what they truly must be thinking and how we can use our mind to serve them with our good wishes. So I'll take that with me. And also those little silence experiences were also really good. So thank you so much.
Well, I hope, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity for being with all of you and sharing these thoughts on silence. And I hope that if anyone listens to the replays, they will also go through those little silence experiences and not just skip over them.
That's true. Yeah, I hope so. And so thank you again for joining us. And I would also like to thank everybody else who joined us this evening and benefited from this session. So now we'll have a slide of the upcoming programs. So feel free to take a picture of those and also join us for those events. And now we'll be ending with a meditation song. Have a great evening, everyone.
Shanti.